Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I'm thrilled to be here with the University Communication Network at CommCon 2026. Let me start with a confession. I spent more time than I want to admit trying to find the right opening for this keynote. I tried a few versions. I moved sentences around. I deleted them. I bought them, some of them back. None of them quite landed. I wanted it to feel thoughtful but not scripted, personal but not self-indulgent, timely but not trendy. And so eventually I did what many of us have probably done quietly when the deadline gets close and the blank page starts staring back. I asked AI for help. I typed, write me a hilarious and relatable opening for a keynote about AI. And it delivered. It suggested I begin by pretending to be a malfunctioning hologram. It offered me a poem. And it even pitched a segment where I playfully roast the audience, which, for a room full of communication professionals, felt less like comedy and more like a legal liability. So I closed the laptop and decided to just talk to you like a person, which, as it turns out, is still the one job the machine cannot do that for me. And that is the part I keep coming back to. Everyone in this room knows how hard it is to build real human connection. Not just clear messages, not just polished language, not just content that checks every box. Connection. That is the work. And it draws on something AI does not have. A real life behind the words, the good days, the hard days, the stories that we tell proudly, and the ones we don't post about on Instagram or TikTok. The judgment that comes from the experience, the care that comes from knowing people are not audiences, users, stakeholders, or segments. They are people. That is what makes communication feel human. And it is the thing AI keeps getting almost right, but never quite. I used to think I could spot AI writing in about 4 seconds, and so everyone else. It turns out that it is not quite right. The research is humbling. Across several studies, people are more often not nearly as good at identifying AI-generated language as they think. In some settings, performance comes close to chance. Context matters, of course, but the larger point still matters. We should be careful about assuming people can reliably detect what was written by a person and what was generated by a machine. But something did change. Not whether people can catch AI. What changed is that people now suspect it. So just quick show of hands. Anyone read anything or watched any videos or any content and thought that that is produced by AI? Anyone? Yes. So whether we were correct or not, that suspicion did something. You lean back, you trusted it a little less, because the tells are everywhere now. The word delve, the phrase in today's fast-paced world, the M dash showing up in every third sentence, like it is being paid by the word. We laugh at that, but stay with it for a second. The moment a reader suspects a message was generated rather than meant, something shifts. They pull away. So accuracy of detection was never really the point. The suspicion is the point, because suspicion is what quietly erodes trust. And we have all felt the other side of it too. You open a message that is grammatically perfect, it is on brand, it follows the template, and somehow you feel nothing. It is correct, it just does not reach you. And Faster did not fix that. That is the tension I want to sit with this morning. AI has made communication faster, it has made drafts easier, it has made production lighter, but it has not made communication trusted, relevant, or human. That part is still ours. So my friends, I think it comes down to 3 quiet tests we are all running, whether we name them or not: trust, voice, and belonging. I get nostalgic about the technology I grew up with. When I describe it to my nephews and nieces, they look at me as if I was talking life before electricity. I still remember making my first mixtape for my girlfriend, choosing every song, getting the order right, waiting for the right moment to press record. Writing her letter by hand, there was no drag and drop playlist, no instant share button, no perfectly timed text with a heart emoji. It took time, it took attention, it took effort. I also remember the day she gave the tapes and the letters back. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. But here is the thing. The communication was slow, it was awkward, it was full of friction. And that friction was part of what made it meaningful. Effort communicates something. Care communicates something before a single word even read. Today, so much of that friction is gone. We can produce almost anything in seconds. But that raises a harder question. When we made communication effortless, did we also make it easier to connect? Did we make it more trusted? Did we make it more relevant? And I do not think the answer is always automatic. We have never had more ways to communicate, more platforms, more formats, more automation, more analytics. We can publish faster than ever, segment more precisely than ever, and repurpose one message across 15 channels before lunch. And somehow, communicating well has rarely felt harder. That tells us something important. The problem is not that we lack tools, we are surrounded by tools. The problem is not that we cannot produce enough content. Most institutions already produce more than any human audience could reasonably absorb. The deeper problem is that attention has changed. Trust has changed. Audience expectations have changed. People are moving through fragmented feeds, group chats, algorithmic timelines, news fatigue, and constant demand on their attention. They are deciding often in a second whether this is worth their time and whether these institutions seem to understand them. That is the real context of university communication in 2026. So the question is not simply how do we make more content. The question is how do we communicate in ways people can trust, understand, use, and feel included by. That is a much harder question, and it is exactly why the work in this room matters. Universities do not build trust only through strategic plans, mission statements, or formal announcements. They build trust through repeated communication encounters. A student opens an email and decides whether the university sees them as a person or a category. A parents read a web page and decide whether the institution is clear and dependable. An alum sees a story and decide whether this still feels like a community they belong to. That is not small work. Every email, caption, web page, headline, photo choice, can crisis message either strengthens or weakens someone's relationship with this institution. Communication is not downstream from the mission. Communication is the one way mission become real. We can argue about AI, whether we love it, fear it, or simply tolerate it. We can agree on one thing this morning. It is here. So the question is who we become inside these new conditions. Faster producers of institutional language or better stewards of trust, voice, and belonging. Let me be fair to the tool. AI earns its place. It can help when the blank page is winning. It can summarize a long transcript, draft all text, test readability, translate a first version, or help a small team move through work that used to take days. We should not romanticize exhaustion. But the value of the tool depends on what we do with the time it gives back. If AI only helps us produce more content faster, then it has accelerated the old problem. If it gives more room to verify, listen, adapt, include, and sharpen, then it has served communication. That is the line I want to draw this morning. Use AI to assist the work, but do not let it become the author of the work. Authorship is not typing. Authorship is responsibility for meaning. It means a person has decided what this message should do, who it should serve, what it should avoid, and what promise it makes in the university's name. AI can arrange language. It cannot carry institutional responsibility. It cannot know the history behind a sensitive decision. It cannot understand why a word may land differently for a first-generation student than for a tenured professor. It cannot decide what GVSU should stand for in the time of hard moment. The standard is not, did AI produce something usable? The standard is, did a human turn that output in something responsible? That line shows up in 3 places: trust, voice, and belonging. Each of these tests begin with the pull of the tool. AI pulls us toward speed, scale, and automation. None of those are bad by themselves. But each pull needs a human counter question. Speed pulls us to publish, so we ask, can people believe this? That is the truth test. Scale pulls us to mass produce, so we ask, does this still sound like us, speaking to real people? That is the voice test. Automation pulls us to set it and forget it. So we ask, who is this for? And will they feel seen? That is the belonging test. These 3 tests are intentionally simple because simple is what survives a busy day. Nobody in this room needs a 47-item checklist when the crisis message is due. You need questions that are easy to remember and hard to avoid. If a message cannot pass them, it is not ready. The first test is trust. Some morning, the pressure to be fast is real and right. A student needs an answer now. A family needs clarity now. In a crisis, silence creates its own anxiety. So speed is not the same. Speed is, in this case, the enemy. Sometimes speed is the job. But speed becomes dangerous the moment it cuts the message loose from verification. A fast message that is wrong is not efficient. It is expensive. It costs correction time. It costs credibility. It costs the trust people placed in this institution before they even open the message. And trust is not a vague feeling. At its simplest, people are asking 3 things. Can I rely on you? Do you know what are you talking about? Are you being honest with me? When AI-assisted speed skips human verification, all 3 are at risk. So the trust test is not, does this sound confident? AI is very good at sounding confident. You have seen that. Very confident, always. The trust test is, can people believe it? And belief depends on more than tone. It depends on whether we check the claim, confirmed the link, verified the date, and named what we know and what we do not. Here is a rule worth keeping. The more consequential the message, the clearer the human line of accountability has to be. For the low-stakes work, AI can help a lot. But when a message touches humans, student safety, a crisis, money, health, identity, or institutional values, the question is, who is accountable for this claim? Who verified it? Who could stand behind it if someone asks, is this true? And is this the university's position? When language is easy to generate, trust moves to the process behind the language. People may not ask every time whether AI was used, but they will always ask, can I trust this institution? So here is the version you can use on Monday. Before you publish, ask 3 questions. What claim in this message most need verifying? Who verified it? Would we be comfortable explaining that process out loud if someone asked? If the answer is unclear, the message is not ready. Speed is helpful, but my friends, trust is essential. The second test is voice. AI pulls us toward a different question. Can we scale it? Can we turn one message into 10 different versions? Can we make it warmer, shorter, friendlier, or whatever way we want it? Yes, most of the time it can. I have seen it. But here is the risk. A message can sound warm, and still be empty. It can sound human and still not sound like us. It can use all the right words and still feel like it came from nowhere in particular. Synthetic warmth is the new generic. This matters especially for universities. Every institution can say it cares about students. Every institution can tell itself innovative, inclusive, and excellent. AI can produce that language endlessly. But audiences do not build relationships with institutional adjectives. They build relationships with a recognizable pattern of voice and care. Voice is not decoration. Voice is a relational memory. It is how people recognize the institution over time. A strong voice does not mean every message sounds the same. A crisis message should not sound like homecoming caption. But underneath those differences, people should still sense the same mind, the same character, the same care. They should feel that Grand Valley is speaking, not a composite of every university press release on the internet. So the voice test is not, does this sound polished, upbeat, or like higher education? The voice test is, does this still sound like us, speaking to real people? So here is the Monday practice. Before you publish an AI-assisted message, read it out loud and ask 3 questions. Does it name something specific about our people, our place, and our mission? Does the tone match what the audience is actually feeling? Does it invite understanding? If the answer is no, revise. Not to make it fancier, to make it truer. Skill is useful, but voice is what makes it ours. The third test is belonging. The first 2 tests ask whether the message can be trusted and whether it sounds like us. This one asks something more personal. What happens to the person on the other end? AI pulls us toward one more question. Can we automate the whole thing? Write it once, adapt it for every channel, and send it for every segment and move on. Sometimes automation helps, but belonging cannot be automated. Belonging requires recognition. It means asking who this message imagines as normal and who has to work harder to find themselves inside it. That is why accessibility and inclusion are not final cleanup. Accessibility is evidence that we understood the audience in the first place. Plain language is not dumbing down. It is respect. All text is not a technical chore. It is an invitation. This is where AI is both useful and limited. It can flag readability, suggest alt text, and draft a translation. Use that help, but do not confuse it with inclusion. AI is trained on patterns. Inclusion often depends on noticing the person who is not treated as probable. The student reading everything on a phone between shifts, the parent who wants to support their kids but does not speak university, the first generation student who hears office hours and thinks it is a warning, not an invitation. The student with the special needs open an inaccessible PDF and reads it as a signal of whether the institution planned for them at all. Communication should not make people infer that they belong. It should design for it. So the belonging test is not, did we target the right segment? The belonging test is, did a person decided who this is for, who might be left out, and whether they will feel seen. Not targeted, seen. A system can target. Belonging says something else. We understood enough to speak with care. So here is the Monday practice. Before you publish, ask 3 questions. Who might struggle to use this message? Who might not recognize themselves in it? What can we fix before they have to ask? That last phrase matters most, before they have to ask. Inclusive communication expects human differences as a normal condition of our work, not a special case. Automation can help us reach more people. Only human care can help people feel seen. Let me pause here for a moment. Think of one message you worked on recently, an email, a campaign, a crisis response. Just hold that message in your mind. 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, run it to 3 questions. Could people believe it? Did it sound like us? Would the right people feel seen? Not always perfectly. None of us gets that right every time. But where did the message need the most human attention? Maybe the facts were solid, but the tone felt generic. Maybe it reached the official audience, but not the actual humans inside that audience. That is not a failure, that is the work. The 3 tests are here to slow us down at the exact moments when speed, scale, and automation can make us careless. And that brings me to the part that actually keep me up at night. The danger was never that AI would replace us. The deeper danger is that we start acting replaceable. That is different. We act replaceable when we treat the first draft as the final thought, when we accept fluent language as proof of good judgment, when we measure the work only by output, more posts, more emails, more clicks, more speed. We act replaceable when we let the average voice of the internet flatten the one voice this institution actually has. And here is what it looks like. It is 4 in the afternoon. There are 6 messages left in the queue. You are looking at a draft you know is fine, clear enough, on brand, accurate enough, but it does not quite land. Then a small voice says, it is good enough. Send it. We have all heard that voice. And the moment we stop pushing back against it is the moment we start acting replaceable. Those last questions are not extra. Who is missing? What are we asking people to do? What might this message feel like on the other side? Those questions are not the delay. They are the job. AI can produce a draft. It cannot know what that draft means in the life of an institution. It cannot know the quiet frustration a student feels when one more message asks for attention without giving clarity. That is human judgment, context, and care. That decision is not small. Institutional stories do not just reflect belonging, they produce it. They tell people who matters here, whose experience is visible, and whose future is imaginable. That is why communication work is a mission work. And that is why the AI era should make the human part of our work more visible. So here is what I'm asking all of us for today. Use AI, use it well, use it for the parts that drain you. The rough draft, the transcript, the readability check, the blank page that needs a beginning. But keep your hands on the part that was always yours, the judgment, the voice, the verification, the decision about who belongs in the story. Because the future of the university communication will not be decided by who produces the most content fastest. It will be decided by who people believe, who helps people understand, and who makes people feel they were not an afterthought. So when we leave this room, let us carry 3 questions. Can people believe it? Does it sound like us? Will people feel seen? Keep asking those 3, and AI will not make our work smaller. It will make room for the work that was always ours. And then brings me back to something that Grand Valley already says beautifully. Reach higher together. That phrase is not only about reaching further. It is about reaching people with clarity, care, trust, understanding, and belonging. People can tell the difference. They can tell the difference between a message that was produced and a message that was meant. They can tell the difference between language that fills space and communication that makes room. And in this next era, that difference, my friends, is the work. Thank you all.
One of the recent phenomenons we've seen is the creation of visual communication, whether it's film, video, hyper-realistic. I'm wondering if you think there's a role for that in communications and how, if you believe that, how it should be approached or how it should be used properly.
So one thing that I always say is like, we cannot have one size fits all. So there are room for those kind of work. So sometimes if I'm posting something about very specific information, we can use those content. But we need to use it responsibly. Because sometimes it happens that when we use those type of content, we do not know. Like so anyone use Midjourney before? An AI tool that generates image? So if you typed like CEO, it always comes up with man. So you will rarely see women as CEO on that platform. So it's not just that platform. Many platform things are like that. So that's the challenge with using AI. But if we see that that works for us, why not?
Thank you for being here today. I'm curious because, a lot of like video produced things now have to disclose that they were made by AI, or, there's a little thing at the bottom that says this was produced by AI. I wonder if for people who work in an office, who send emails, do you ever see a world where we have to disclose at the bottom, this was enhanced by AI, for disclosure, or would that be too much?
My thing is that if the content is generated by AI, like video clip, we should disclose it for the sake of the transparency. So people has feelings about whether the content is generated by AI or not. So for the sake of transparency, it should be. But I don't think that if I draft an email and then polish it using AI, that need to be disclosed. So that's kind of like typical part of editing the process. But if those things are not ours, and also I do have some serious skepticism about how AI generate content. So those type of content need to be so the question is the same, can we trust those things? So whether that reflects us, and the last thing is that whether those things that depicted the characters or anything, do our students feel included over there? So if that things are there, if we pass those 3 tests, then it should be. But I always feel that transparency is very important.
Even before AI came online, communicators have been dealing with the amount of noise that is already out surrounding our attempts to communicate and break through that noise. Now with AI, the ability to speed up for those who aren't slowing down and heeding your message, there could be even more noise out there. So it seems to me that if we listen to your comments and we lean into the human touch and really sounding authentic and human in our communications, there's the greater chance for us to stand out in that noise, which could be increasing. So I think that it just underscores for me the importance of bringing the human to the surface, and it's never been more important and potentially more distinguishing for us as we communicate. Thoughts about that?
I personally feel the same, because people are more looking for authentic content, because there are so many what we call AI slopes, it's everywhere. Every 5 or 6 content that I see is you can tell that those things are not typical content, and there are so much noise. And as I think in the future, things will work for those institutions, those who actually looking the human side of the communication more than just generating content.
I've noticed that, especially on social media and with young people, college-age people, the consensus is very anti-AI, at least in the circles that I've been in. And I'm wondering how that plays into the decision of whether or not to use AI, and also if you have any thoughts on if that is a short-term concern? Like, is it because it's new that people are particularly unsettled by it, or is that a long-term factor?
I think like being unsettled about AI is a valid response, because AI, like the way the energy it takes to generate a content or any piece of things it like produce, the huge energy consumption is there. We're not thinking about the environmental risk. And second is that we already flooded by so many noise on the internet, and it just accelerates those problems again and again. And when it comes to social media, we failed to regulate it in a way that is helpful for our kids. And this is the time I'm seeing the same thing happening again, that like it's the people who are talking back that we need to do this thing, we need to do that thing. But I would like suggest that like AI by itself is not a bad thing. So I ask my students, so when I teach AI, I do sense that like skepticism over there. It's like very visible. So I just like had a conversation with students about how to communicate research to the wider audience, how to make it more accessible in their research. So like when I talked about AI, so at least half of the like student population in that room was really pissed off. I can see. But my concern was that it is here. And we need to know how to use it in strategic ways and meaningful ways. As I said, like if something drains me, like I don't want to read like 20-page transcript. I just need a summary of that. That purpose it serves. So it has its purpose. But I'm not going to say that overusing it will solve any problem. It will accelerate the old problem that we had. Thank you.
I'm curious to know if you have any recommended ways to measure if people are developing trust or feeling seen or heard, or are understanding our voice through our communication? Or do you just rely on the metrics of, you know, email clicks, ad impressions, that kind of stuff? How do we measure whether or not that is occurring in our communications?
So there are different ways to do that. For example, if we have a focus group, if we have interviews, we can ask our target audience, the people that we are trying to reach, whether they feel seen. For example, I have in my class, research class, I have focus group where students talk about Grand Valley. So I have always seen like different group of students, they feel they are not being seen. So they had that perception. So how we can capture that? So I feel like more ways we get in-depth understanding by asking those questions. Do you feel that what is the things that we can do better so that you feel that university, you belongs to this university? So like you need to ask those questions again and again. There is no perfect metrics or tool available, but like interviews, focus group, these are really good way to find out what is going on.